Welcome to Tales of the Past, where we explore the wonders of the human world and the escapades of humanity to uncover valuable moral lessons.
Let us journey back into these echoes from the past. This story did not start here, but this was the day my life changed forever. It was the day my stepmother erased my memory. My name is Deola, and this is my story. I was 12 years old when my stepmother wiped out my memory. It was 7 years after my parents went their separate ways. My parents had 5 children together. After my father had attempted to throw my mother off the balcony, my mother decided that was it. She packed her things, determined to leave the nightmare behind. "You cannot keep treating me like this," my mother said, her voice trembling but firm. "This ends today." My father, towering and intimidating, stood blocking the doorway. "You want to leave? Fine," he barked, "but you are not taking my daughter." I was their only daughter, the youngest of 5 children. 7 years ago, when my parents separated, my oldest brother, Adeolu, was 13 years old, followed by Adeoti, who was 11, then Adeyemi, who was 9, and Adefemi, who was 7. I was the youngest at 5 years old. My father was adamant about not letting my mother take his girl away. Her face crumpled with anguish. "She's just a baby," she pleaded, glancing toward me. "I cannot leave her here, not like this." "She stays," my father said, his voice sharp like a knife cutting through her resolve. "You can take whoever else you want, but she stays." I remember crouching in the corner of the room, clutching my ragged doll, the one Adeolu had given me on my 3rd birthday. The argument between my parents filled the air like a storm, loud and suffocating. Adeolu and Adeoti stood behind my mother, already holding small bags of clothes. Adeolu glanced at me, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Mommy, maybe we should all stay. Please don't go," he pleaded. My mother turned to him with a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "Deolu, I am not staying in this house another second. Do you understand me? You are coming with me, both of you," she said, pointing to Adeolu and Adeoti. Adeyemi and Adefemi clung to her father's legs. "We want to stay with Daddy," they wailed in unison, their innocent voices piercing the tension in the room. "Gbemi, Femi, come here," my mother shouted, her voice cracking. "You do not understand what is happening. You need to come with me." "No," Gbemi shouted back, tears streaming down his cheeks. "We do not want to leave." My father looked down at them and smirked, as though victorious, threatening. In the end, my mother stood up slowly, wiping her face as though erasing her emotions. "Fine," she said coldly, "but remember this day, all of you." "I tried." She turned to Adeolu and Adeoti. "Let us go." As she walked out the door, she glanced back one last time, her eyes locking with mine. "I will always love you," she said, her voice barely audible, but it rang in my ears for years afterward. The door slammed shut behind her, and the silence that followed was deafening. I stayed behind with my father and my 2 younger brothers, too young to understand the weight of what had just happened, but old enough to feel the void she left behind. After my mother left, my life became a blur of fragmented memories, some too painful to piece together fully. I was just 5 years old, too young to understand the complexities of what had happened, but old enough to feel the void my mother left behind. Adeolu and Adeoti, my two oldest brothers, had gone with my mother. That left me with Adeyemi and Adefemi, who were just 9 and 7 years old at the time. They became my world, my caretakers and my protectors, but they were only children, and the responsibility of taking care of me was a burden far too heavy for their small shoulders. Adeyemi tried to take on the role of a parent, though he barely understood what that meant. He would comb my hair in the mornings before school, his fingers awkwardly tugging through the tangles. "Hold still, Deola," he would say in exasperation, his young face furrowing with concentration. Adefemi, at 7, was more playful, but still carried the weight of responsibility in his own way. He would walk me to school, holding my hand tightly and try to shield me from the harsh realities of our home life. "Don't worry, Deola," he would say, his voice full of childish optimism. "Everything will be okay." But things were not okay. Our father, Prince Adedayo, was a wealthy man from a prominent family. He worked as a manager at a manufacturing company, earning more than enough to provide for us. Yet, instead of creating a stable home, he spent his money on women and his lavish lifestyle. The home became a revolving door for his lovers. Some would try to win us over with treats or kind words, while others barely acknowledged her existence. "Deola, meet your new auntie," my father would say with a sly grin, introducing yet another woman as though she were part of the furniture. I would nod politely, knowing she would be gone soon enough. At night, the house was often filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses. Adeyemi and Adefemi would press their hands over my ears, trying to block out the noise. "Just go to sleep, Deola," Adeyemi would whisper. "It's nothing." But it was something that made the house feel less like a home and more like a cold, unfamiliar place. Our father's charm was undeniable. He had a way of making people feel special, but it masked a selfishness that ran deep. He barely asked how we were doing or what we needed. To him, we were simply part of the background of his life. I remember one night when Adefemi tried to cook dinner. He had seen Adeoti cook before and thought he could do the same, but the stew burned, filling the kitchen with smoke. I coughed so hard that tears streamed down my face. Our father stormed into the kitchen, his face a mask of rage. "What kind of nonsense is this?" he shouted, glaring at us. "You children cannot even make a simple meal." Adeyemi stepped in front of me and Adefemi, his small frame trembling but determined. "We are trying, Baba," he said quietly. "We are just kids." "Kids?" our father sneered. "You are old enough to take care of yourselves. Stop being so useless." Then he turned and walked away, leaving us to clean up the mess. The weight of his words lingered long after he was gone. Adeyemi hugged me tightly that night, whispering, "Don't cry, Deola. We'll figure it out." But we're just children, and figuring it out felt impossible most days. Adeyemi and Adefemi tried their best to shield me from the worst of it, but the cracks in our world were impossible to ignore. Our father always made sure food was in the house, but how it was prepared was never his concern. Sometimes he would come home sober, and in rare moment of tenderness, spoil us with treats, ice cream, biscuits, or even toys. For a brief moment, it felt like we had a real father. His younger brother, Uncle Adekunle, once suggested that we be sent to stay with our aunt, our father's sister, but father had refused. "I will not let my children be raised by families," he said sharply, as if admitting he needed help would tarnish his pride. Uncle Adekunle also suggested hiring a maid to help with the housework and our care, but father dismissed the idea. "I do not want strangers raising my children," he declared, so we took care of each other. The burden of raising me fell squarely on Adeyemi and Adefemi, but we shared what little we had: the meals, the care, and the love. They gave me everything they could, sacrificing their own childhoods in the process. Then, Auntie Gbemi came into our lives. Unlike the other women father had brought home, Auntie Gbemi seemed to stay. She was kind in a way that felt unfamiliar but comforting. She would buy us treats like biscuits, puff-puff, and even soft drinks on occasion, and take care of us whenever she was around. She braided my hair neatly, something Adeyemi had struggled with, and she cooked meals that didn't taste like experiment. At first, we didn't know what to make of her. She didn't seem like the others who came and went like the wind. She lingered, and for the first time, it seemed like Father had found someone who wasn't just passing through. But Auntie Gbemi wasn't perfect. On a few occasions, especially when Father wasn't there, she snapped. Once, when Adefemi accidentally stepped on her toes while running around the kitchen, she slapped him hard across the face. We froze, too stunned to react. She didn't apologize or even acknowledge what had happened. Instead, she carried on as if nothing were out of the ordinary. Later that evening, she cooked out a delicious meal and braided my hair while humming a song. And because we were desperate for kindness, desperate for some semblance of normalcy, we forgave her. Life moved on as if nothing had happened. Over time, her presence became constant, and with that came a strange sense of stability. A year after she entered our lives, Father announced that we were going to Ado Ekiti to marry her. I remember the trip vividly, the excitement of going somewhere new, the chatter about the wedding, and the unspoken hope that maybe, just maybe, this marriage would change everything. For better or worse, Auntie Gbemi was about to become a permanent part of our lives. What next? You will get to know.